we haven't had it like this for 100 years. But today, people of great wealth, I believe what I've seen a lot, and I've known some very, very lovely, wealthy people, don't get me wrong, but it's very easy to emotionally buffer yourself from the suffering of other people when you have tremendous material wealth. You live behind walls on so many levels. I was talking to a very wealthy person the other day that was interviewing me. And I was talking about the 1 in 4 Americans who live with medical debt. I was talking about the high poverty rate. I was talking about the 1.3 million who, ration their insulin. I was talking about the people having to work 2 or 3 jobs. People, 1/3 of our workforce living on less than $15 an hour. All the kinds of people that you were talking about, the kinds of situations. And his response to me was, Marianne, I'm out there. I just don't see this. And I just said, of course you don't see it. They're not in your neighborhood. And I think American society has developed this way of making sure that certain people get to live a certain lifestyle, and whatever suffering results from that, because the system knows we have a conscience, make sure it's on the other side of town or the other side of the world. I remember when I moved to Santa Barbara, California, and I just moved there, and I was reading an article in the local newspaper, and it said that there was a law being passed that you couldn't sit on the sidewalk. And I said to a friend, why would they pass a law saying you couldn't sit on the sidewalk? My friend said, hello, Marianne. Any homeless people who are around here, they don't want to inconvenience the shoppers. They don't want you to have to see this suffering right in front of you. So we'll just give people, they're criminalizing poverty, criminalizing homelessness and so forth. So I think that it all goes back to what you were saying before, when you don't recognize the suffering of the other. And if you don't see it, you don't necessarily, because America, it's really interesting. You probably remember this. You remember decades ago, it was in a land far away, it feels like now. Like you were talking about when people could actually afford homes and so forth. There was a little girl who fell down a well. Do you remember that?
Yes.
The whole country held its breath. Did they get her? People were meeting like at the water cooler in the afternoon. Did they find her?
This was a girl in Texas, I think it was.
Yeah, wherever it was. And so when we see one suffering human being, people's hearts are touched. But we have this capacity for denial and grandiosity when it's many thousands. 12,000 children a day on this planet starve. And it's something, and that does go back to the brain, doesn't it, this capacity?
Well, there are 2 issues I'd like to comment on. First, when you mentioned this individual who said, I don't see that, well, a couple things happen. One is cognitive dissonance occurs, because if it was in your face every day, you could not possibly do it. So they create a narrative, and they avoid the situations where they have to face that. The other aspect of this is, from a neuroscience perspective, when most of us function by recognizing that we need other people. And because, I need a ride there, so I have a friend who has a car and they're a good friend and they'll take me. Rich people, they don't need anybody. Everybody is a commodity that can easily be replaced. And studies have demonstrated that when that is the case, this essentially separates you from people of value, which is typically people in their same wealth class, to simply a commodity that if they don't do what you want, you get rid of them. And there's no sense that you have a responsibility to those people. I heard one of the most disheartening things earlier today there was a story about Elon Musk. But he said something, one of the most horrible things I've ever heard, which is something like, I don't have to go by the rules. I'm rich and I do what I want. And if it costs me money, I don't really care because I'm so rich. I mean, what could be a more insensitive thing to say, to basically say, I do what I want. I can run over anybody I want. I can treat anyone, and I can get away with it because I'm rich. And unfortunately, this has become a narrative for so many people of great wealth. Now, listen, I'm not implying that I'm not wealthy comparatively. I am in the top 1%. But I've had people say to me, well, the reason I like Trump is I have my 401k is X, Y, or Z. I said, I don't care about my 401k. I care about the person on the street who's hungry. We have to take a shift of how we look at the world.
And it's important that we remember that not every rich person is a greedy bastard. It's important that we remember, and I believe this is true. I think for the vast majority of people who have created wealth in this country, they don't want to feel that their capacity to create wealth is at the expense of someone else's ability to do so. But I also think you have a good point. There are enough ways to buffer yourself from the realization if you're not admitting that, in fact, that is the case. So these are the kinds of changes in the way we view things. You're right. I think we've created a society where rugged individualism is transitioned to rugged narcissism. My taxes are better. My taxes are lower. Therefore, it's a good policy. Maybe yes, maybe no. Depends on what tax bracket that you're in. So the next one you talked about is spirituality.